morning. Good morning and welcome to this worship service at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tucson. My name is Reverend Bethany Russell Lowe, and I have the great pleasure and honor of serving as minister of this congregation. Our community is striving to be as varied of the blooms of the Sonoran Desert. So whoever you are, whoever you've been, and whoever you are becoming, I invite you to bring all of that, your whole self, here and now. Our requirement to wear masks in worship and in concurrent religious education has lifted. You are, of course, still welcome to wear a mask, especially as COVID cases are rising, but it is not required. We ask that if you are feeling sick, we encourage that you join us on YouTube. We're always on YouTube every Sunday. If you're joining us for any in-person activities here at UUCT, our expectation is that you are vaccinated. I extend a special welcome to any visitors and invite you to fill out a guest information card. If you're joining us on YouTube, you can find that on our website in the newcomer section. If you're here in person, head on over to the Welcome Center behind you and to your left after worship, and you can fill out a card there. If you need one during the service, there are 2 gender-inclusive single-stall restrooms through the door to your left down the hallway. Take another left, there are 2 restrooms there. And we will meet for social after right after the service, right here in Goddard. Our kitchen ministry always makes sure there is coffee, iced tea, lemonade, and some snacks. And today there are enhanced snacks because we are hoping that many of you will stay for some things happening after church. And the kitchen ministry appreciates your enhanced donations for their enhanced snacks. I hear that there are tuna salad sandwiches and cucumber sandwiches. As some of you have already seen, we are having a book sale by one of our affiliated community ministers. She is clearing off her shelves and downsizing, and we get to be the recipients of some of her books if you would care. They are Unitarian Universalist and interfaith and relevant to many of us. They are just $1 each, so get them while they're hot after the service, and all proceeds will go to UUCT. Thank you, Reverend Lisa. After worship today at 12:15 in Servetus, after you've had your sandwich, there will be a discussion of the Peace Amendment to the Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. Please join this educational discussion to learn more so your board can discern whether or not to support this amendment. If you're sitting there wondering, what is Article 2? What is she talking about? I don't understand what she means by Peace Amendment. Listen in the sermon, attend the session, and you should have a better idea. Maybe not a complete idea, but a better one. Your board of trustees has created a task force to revision our leadership development and nominating committee structure. If you are a church geek like me and those areas of congregational life interest you, talk to me or Sam Meyer, who's in the kitchen after service. We are planning to kind of brainstorm some big changes the next 4 to 6 weeks, so there's some urgency in you telling us you're interested. And next Saturday at 10:30 a.m., right here in Goddard Hall, there will be a celebration of life service for Judy Dare, our beloved who passed a few months ago. So please do join us for that if you are interested. 10:30 next Saturday. We will start and continue into our worship service together by turning to each other, hopefully someone you don't know very well yet, and ask your neighbor how they would define justice. How do you find justice? If you're joining us online, you're welcome to put your answers in the YouTube chat and discuss them now.
Thank you, Jose. And let's give a big UUCT welcome to our guest musician today, Jose Luis Puerta. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Celeste Rogers, and I will be your worship associate this morning. Our words for call to worship come from Reverend Heather Ryan Starr. On this day, as with so many Sundays, we come in from the whirling world, the wind, the bright sun, the push and pull of tides and time, from the tumult of global news and local stories, the pain we hear of, the demands on our spirits, the do this now culture that we live in. We come into this sanctuary from that windstorm, the rush of speeding drivers on the roadways, the rustling silence that fills some of our homes, the vastness of a once busy and perhaps now quieter house. All of this can leave us feeling stirred and unsettled. When we give our attention to what's going on around and beyond us in this throbbing world, we can feel windblown. We need places where we can come and find our grounding once again. Come in from the wind, come in from the whirl. May this be a place where we can experience genuine stillness, even just for a few moments. May this be a place that we can count on as we turn into the parking lot studded with cacti and desert trees, or as we turn on our computers and come seeking our congregational home page. May we feel pulled into a restorative time of energetic peace. May this be a place of learning, of nourishment, a community that generates new zest in us for the dynamic beauty of this world. Come, let us worship together. Now, please join me in saying our words for chalice lighting from Reverend Jamie A. Yandel. The words will be on the screen. We light this flame. Oops, sorry. I'll give you a moment here. Okay, sorry. I will read them then. We light this flame to ignite the sacred power of justice. We light this flame so that it may be a beacon of hope in moments of uncertainty, fear, anxiety, and the unknown. We light this flame and are emboldened by its blaze, knowing our strength as a prophetic and powerful people is rooted in the diverse ways we answer the call to love. If you are joining us on YouTube and have a chalice or candle nearby, please light it with us now as we light our chalice here in Goddard.
And would you respond in song by rising as you are able in body or spirit to sing hymn 288 in the Gray Hymnal, All Our Architects. The words will be on the screen, and we'll start when the words are on the screen. Here we go. Thank you, guys. Here we go. Catch the tune as you can. All our architects of faith, working in these walls of time, some with massive deeds and great, some with ornaments of rhyme, for the structure that we raise, time is with materials filled, our todays and yesterdays are the blocks with which we
I have a story for us that might be a once upon a time story that is possibly true and possibly just more than true. It comes to us from the Jewish scriptures, the Tanakh. It is 1 Samuel 17, and those of you who know, the story is titled David and Goliath. Many of us are familiar with this story, so it goes something like this. The Philistines gathered their armies for battle, and Saul and the Israelites gathered their army against the Philistines, and the Philistines were on one mountain, and the Israelites were on this mountain, and they stood staring at each other across this valley. Now, the Philistines, originally from Crete, had moved in and settled the lands, and they were constantly warring, these two groups of peoples. There came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath. He is described as, his height is 4 to maybe 6 cubits. A cubit is about 18 inches. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, which is like fish scales of bronze, so he's well protected. And it says the coat weighed 5,000 shekels of bronze. So maybe some of our mathematicians can figure out what a shekel might cost in today's dollars. Well armored. He had greaves of bronze on his legs, which I think of like soccer shin guards, if any of you played soccer, right? Shin guards of bronze. A javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. And it says the shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, so pretty big and hardy. And he came forward with his shield bearer in front of him. He stood and shouted, and I want to read this to you. He stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, quote, "Why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. If I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." And the Philistine said, "Today I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man that we may fight together." So when Saul and all of Israel heard this threat, they shook in their boots because he is a giant man clad in bronze, ready to slaughter them. Now, there was a family in this ranks. David was the youngest son of Jesse. 3 of Jesse's older sons were in this war in these army ranks with Saul. David, as the youngest, stayed back in Bethlehem to tend the flocks. He was their shepherd. So for 40 days, the Philistines came out and said, "Send us your man, send us your man." Everybody was too afraid to come to the front until David came. David's dad, Jesse, said, "Take some bread and some desserts, some snacks up to the troops, see how everybody's doing." And David said, "Why is there this impasse? Why does nobody go and fight Goliath?" And Saul said, You're the youngest boy. You're but a young man. You can't fight Goliath." And David said, "I'm a shepherd. I fight bears and kill bears. I fight wolves and kill wolves. Surely I can kill Goliath." And Saul says, "Okay, but here, take my sword and my shield and my helmet of bronze." And David puts it on and says, "I can't wear this. I am not accustomed to this." So he takes off all the protection. And he runs out to meet Goliath in the field. And on his way, he took his staff in his hands, and he chose 5 smooth stones from the riverbank and put them in his shepherd's bag. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. The Philistine lumbers out and says, "I've got you now." David runs down the mountain and hurls 1 stone and kills Goliath with 1 stone. So what are we to make of this story? Traditional interpretation leaves us with this story that illustrates that God's power to give an underdog a win no matter what the odds. I want to invite us to think about this differently. That maybe David wasn't, in fact, the underdog here, right? What did David have on his side? Here's this lumbering brute. He can't move. He's weighed down by shekels of bronze mail. He's got a bronze helmet on. His spear is huge. He can't engage in hand-to-hand combat the way that David can. David runs down the mountains and slings his stone. He had the advantage of technology. He had the advantage of speed and agility. So maybe David really wasn't the underdog. What do we do with this fable when we think about, well, maybe we're not the underdog? What can we learn about agility and about using our technology? I hear echoes of Goliath's enraged battle cry, "Today I defy the ranks of Israel," when we say to ourselves, we tried that 10 years ago and it doesn't work. We are stuck in an old way of fighting that doesn't work. What didn't work in the past might actually work today. Or we could imagine a new way. So what are the giants we think we can't slay? Where do we think we could become more agile, nimble, or adaptable? By thinking creatively, what giants can we defeat? Who might we be if we embrace our full creativity, adaptability, and used our available technology? Thank you.
Thank you, Jamili. Our earth is strong. It can hold our pain and our joy, our love and our anger. Our shared bowl, which we use for joys and concerns each week, is strong enough to hold the big rocks, our collective celebrations and mournings, and also the smaller stones that will be added to signify our individual joys and sorrows. For me personally, I am heartbroken and angry about the ongoing genocide against the Palestinians in Gaza. And we must not also forget Russia's war of aggression that continues in Ukraine and oppressors everywhere in the world. We who live in the desert know that water is a life-sustaining and scarce resource. Let's remember those desert people who came first in this place. We honor the Hohokam, the Yavapai, the Tohono, the Yaqui, and the people who no longer exist as tribal entities here in Arizona. Let us remember those who are walking through our desert right now without access to water. We pour water from a plastic jug, similar to the ones used by those seeking to assure greater access to water in the desert, like our ministry partner, No More Deaths. If you have a joy or sorrow to share, I invite you to go to menti.com and put in the code 1536081. If you are here in person and cannot access the internet, you can go to Brian Moon, and he can type in your joy or sorrow for you. If you are here in person, you are welcome to come up to the table and put a stone into the water to symbolize your joy or sorrow. The pebbles create ripples of hope.
There are none today.
Okay, there are none today. May we acknowledge the joys and sorrows shared and those that remain unspoken by keeping a moment of silence held in the warm embrace of this community. Our words for prayer, meditation, and contemplation this morning come from Jessica York. This is not a prayer that you may find hope, for hope is a luxury that some cannot find and others cannot afford. This is not a prayer that you find more love in the world, though I hope you continue to feel love and send love to those near and far. I pray instead that you may find tools, a hammer lying half hidden in the grass, a roll of duct tape curled up and forgotten on a high shelf in the back of the closet, a wrench poking out of the back pocket of a stranger. Take these tools and gird thyself, a hammer for justice, duct tape to hold together your broken heart, a wrench to grip and provide advantage in applying torque to turn objects or turn the world. Take these tools and others you may find in places expected and unexpected. Take these tools and gird thyself, for weeping may last through the night, but the work begins in the morning.
Jessica York's words are in my back pocket for this week. Gird thyself. Some of you might be sitting there wondering why Jameeline offered yet another biblical story this morning. Haven't we had enough the past month? It was my request, and it's a pretty direct line to something I'm talking about today. Let me tell you a little bit more. Today is kicking off what we're calling the 5 Smooth Stones series. And this comes from a usage of that phrase, 5 smooth stones, in our liberal religious tradition. Liberal religion in the 20th century and in the 21st century is a little bit of a religious underdog. We have been quiet at times. We have held back at times. And yet, some among 20th century Unitarians and modern Unitarian Universalists believe that, like David, we have valuable resources easily available to us, precious resources that make us a strong and formidable force in the quest for justice, peace, and equity. These precious resources are theological, and they have held us together and guided our movement throughout the past century and this one. This phrase, the 5 smooth stones, is attributed to someone called Reverend James Luther Adams. You'll hear his name a lot today, and I call him, ministers and lay theologians call him JLA, James Luther Adams. So if I say JLA, I'm falling into that convention today. Reverend James Luther Adams lived from 1901 to 1994. He was a preeminent scholar of Unitarian and Unitarian Universalism. He was a pastor, he served churches, and a theologian. He led a few congregations in Massachusetts, and during that time was very active in the local union struggles. After serving those congregations, he was called to serve the Meadville Lombard Theological School, one of our Unitarian Universalist theological schools, and then the University of Chicago Divinity School, Harvard Divinity School, and he retired, quote unquote, at Andover Newton Theological School, where I went to seminary, although he died before I was there. He's affectionately, I said this part. Dr. Dan McCannon wrote an essay on the Renaissance principles of Reverend Adams and drew attention to the fact that his prolific and prophetic work was rooted in groups. We Unitarian Universalists attribute a lot of theological ideas to him, but really he was deeply rooted in groups of friends, and he believed that, quote, the disciplined small group not the individual, is the agent of renewal in church and society, the disciplined small group. Reverend Adams believed that theology develops when small groups discuss and come to consensus on what they believe in common. He founded and was part of the Greenfield Study Group, which was one of the first study groups of Unitarian and Unitarian Universalist ministers. That's still ongoing today. They would meet to discuss religious ideas and then write essays to publish out in the world. He served on the board of the Christian Register, the Unitarian newspaper, because Unitarians were Christian then, strictly Christian, mostly Christian then. He served on the board of the Christian Register and helped that organization, it's a fascinating story, move from a single editorship to the board of directors holding the editorship. And so the board of directors was holding a mutual responsibility for editing these texts and for deciding what was published. He also founded the Commission on Appraisal, which still exists today, which is a tool by which we as Unitarian Universalists nationally study big topics like polity and covenant and belonging in our congregations. James Luther Adams, one piece of James Luther Adams' theology lives on through this 5 smooth stones phrase. And while this 5 smooth stones of liberal religion is often attributed to Adams, it was actually one of his editors of one of the volumes of books who looked at his essays and said, I think these are the 5 things that James Luther Adams talks about the most. So here are the 5 things. Living tradition, we are a living tradition. Religious liberalism depends on the principle that revelation is continuous. We are always learning and changing. 2 is freedom. All relations between persons ought ideally to rest on mutual free consent and not on coercion. So we are in relationship by choice, right? Justice, religious liberalism affirms the moral obligation to direct one's efforts towards the establishment of a just and loving community. It is this which makes the role of the prophet central and indispensable in liberalism. We'll unpack that one more today. The 4th is humanism. We deny the immaculate conception of virtue and affirm the necessary of social incarnation. We have agency. Humans do the work of the world, right? And the last one is hope. Liberalism holds that the resources, divine and human, that are available for the achievement of meaningful change justify an attitude of ultimate optimism. That just means hope to me. It's a lot of words. So today is the first of a 5 Smooth Stones series that we'll do throughout this spring to explore each of those 5 smooth stones of liberalism one at a time. We're just doing justice today. So if you've tuned out, tune back in. Some people like this stuff, some people don't. Why are we thinking about these principles today? One of the major reasons is that this year, our Unitarian Universalist Association is reviewing Article 2 of our denominational bylaws. We have study groups in this congregation that have begun meeting to discuss what the proposed Article 2 is. The Article 2 is currently the thing that holds the 7 principles and the 6 sources. And the proposed Article 2, which we are talking about this year, does not contain the 7 principles or the 6 sources. And if you're like, this is the first time I'm hearing about it, I'm sure it's not, and now you can't tell me it is. Jamelia and I have been talking about this for a while now, and I want to be really clear. There's a little bit of a rumor that the 7 principles are still included. They're not. It's shifting. It's changing. Their proposal. Remember, as I'm asking you to remember that we've mentioned Article 2, that James Luther Adams recommended that we discuss and discern our theology in small groups and come to consensus on what we hold in common. I'll mention here that consensus does not mean we all agree. It means we agree to move forward together with whatever we're consenting to. If you haven't joined a small group already, I encourage you to talk to Jamelia. And you could also attend these 5 Smooth Stone series over the course of the next few months. They're going to be tying in James Luther Adams' 5 Smooth Stones to Article 2 principles. So today's stone is justice. I'll repeat the definition. This is James Luther Adams' words. Religious liberalism affirms the moral obligation to direct one's efforts towards the establishment of a just and loving community. It is this which makes the role of the prophet central and indispensable to liberalism. So break that down. There's a moral obligation. We generally understand what this means. There's a foundation, ethics, that tell us we have to do work in the world. We have to make this place better. How are we making this place better? The goal is a just and loving community. I think that can mean a lot of different things, but we have a general understanding, just and loving community. The piece of James Luther Adams' definition I find most captivating for us is this idea that we are to be and to know prophets. I don't think we talk about prophets very much in Unitarian Universalism. Do we? Do you? I don't. Maybe more than some of you, but still, not very much. It made me think about, what is a prophet? James Luther Adams believed that he had coined this term, prophethood of all believers, which is this idea that if you are part of one of these small groups that is discerning liberal theology, you are a prophet of liberal theology. Each of us has some wisdom to share, something to give to the larger whole, and that it is by churning through theology together that we can put our prophecy out into the world. By coming to consensus about what we hold in common and promoting that, we can become prophetic institutions. We are all prophets, James Luther Adams says, and we're working towards an institution that is working to correct the world. Reverend Adams' concept of justice lives on today in our communities. We can feel that moral obligation, right, to bring and grow in this community. We are still striving for a just and loving community. And with some work, I think we can begin to understand how each of us has a prophetic power in the world, the ability to bring wisdom to and to correct the wrongs of our world. What is the foundation of your moral obligation? What does just and loving community look like or feel like to you? And what is your own prophetic power? Who around you offers you prophecy?
Our next hymn is one that many of you will have sung at least once or twice, but many of you will also not know. And so here's a little bit about how it goes. Would you click to the next slide, please? The bottom part repeats. The top part goes through and only one word changes. You'll catch the different word changes as you go. The bottom part, if you are brand new to this song, make sure that you sing the bottom part. You'll hear that twice on each slide. You'll hear it 6 total times. And let me just tell you a little fun thing, fun for me. The bottom part is syncopated. That is, a lot of the words happen off the beat. What's the beat? The beat will be the thing that I'm clapping. You'll hear that. So join in, and if you're one of the dozen people in the room that really know the song, sing out. Ready? One morning I woke up and I knew what to do. I'd catch all the stones that everyone threw. I'd catch all the sorrow that I could in a day. Then I'd take all the stones and I'd throw them away. Don't ask why, say we must all be free. Don't ask when, say you can count on me. That part repeats. Don't ask why, say we must all be free. Don't ask when, say you can count on me. 1, 2, ready. One morning I woke up and I knew what to do. I'd catch all the stones that everyone's sorrow. I'd catch all the anger that I could in a day. Then I'd take all the stones and I'd throw them away. Don't ask why, say we must all be free. Don't ask when, say you can count on me. Don't ask why, say we must all be free. Don't ask when, say you can count on me. 1, 2, ready. One morning I woke up and I knew what to do. I'd catch all the stones that everyone threw. I'd catch the injustice that I could in a day. And then I'd take all the stones and I'd throw them away. Don't ask why, say we must all be free. Don't ask when, say you can count on me. Don't ask why, say we must all be free. Don't ask when, say you can count on me.
offering words today come from Erica A. Hewitt. What we say yes to. The offering that we take each Sunday isn't just a stale habit. It's an opportunity to recommit to this place and to this people. Our offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something we value. With our gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of our faith. May our offering help us practice Unitarian Universalism within and beyond our congregation as tools to empower our mission. Now, an offering will be collected to support the life and work of our congregation. If you are joining us on live stream, you can send a check to the office, give online at uuctucson.org/donate, or text 833-361-5796. If you are here in person, the ushers will come around now with the offering baskets to collect your donations. Please give generously. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose Luis. It is always a pleasure to hear you. Our reading today is responsive, which means that you have a role to play if you so wish. The words will be on your screen soon. I will read the plain font, and you will read the italicized words. Always, it is easier to pay homage to prophets than to heed the direction of their vision. It is easier to blindly to venerate the saints than to learn the human quality of their sainthood. It is easier to glorify the heroes of the race than to give weight to their examples. To worship the wise is much easier than to profit by their wisdom. Great leaders are honored not by adulation, but by sharing their insights and values. Grandchildren of those who stoned the prophet sometimes gather up the stones to build the prophet's monument. Always, it is easier to pay homage to prophets than to heed the direction of their vision. I'll start with another definition of justice. This is from the proposed Article 2 values, the things we're asking you to consider this year. They define justice this way. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of structural oppression. We support the use of inclusive, democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association, and society at large. It's a little different than Adam's definition of justice. A reminder that the Article 2 Commission wrote this language after being in discussion with thousands of Unitarian Universalists. Not all of us, but thousands of us. And by reading this, I see that we have evolved as a faith since Reverend Adams' time. We have sharpened our understanding of what we mean by justice. In the proposed Article 2, there is a move away from personal moral obligation to working together. We might call this a collective moral obligation. Our work together is rooted in love. We care about each other and we want each other to thrive. That is why we strive for justice. And the framework of a just and loving community, to me, in this definition, is outlined in greater, sharper detail. By just and loving, we mean beloved community, and by that we mean anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and radically small d democratic. I say this not to critique Reverend James Luther Adams' work, but to draw attention to how we, together as Unitarian Universalists, have evolved in the 30 years since Adam died. The trend in our Unitarian Universalist understanding of justice from the 20th century to the 21st century has been one of working for the common good to working for collective liberation, which are very similar values at their foundation, but the two goals have very different orientations. The common good is a philosophical, economic, and political idea that we work towards that which is best for the benefit of all, or maybe most, people in society. The common good is achieved by citizens working together through collective action and participation in the political realms and public service. This framework was informed by many, many good and righteous people over decades and centuries, really, and not coincidentally, this framework was shaped by white landowning men, right? This fact is important to understand the difference in the foundation of common good and collective liberation. Collective liberation is this recognition that our struggles are intimately connected and that we all have to work together to build a better world. Collective liberation honors the worth and dignity of all people and acknowledges that within oppressive systems, everyone suffers, whether you are being oppressed or you have privilege or are the oppressor. Collective liberation, very shortly, is about getting all of us free from all that binds us and all that divides us. Collective liberation arose out of marginalized communities and their deep desire and need for a world free of oppression. When we are working for collective liberation, therefore, we have to center marginalized voices. We have to examine how oppressions impact all of us, even those of us who have privilege in oppressive systems. The common good is a worthy goal, but in making that our primary aim, we have too often forgotten those who need our society to transform the most and the fastest. The shift from common good to collective liberation in Unitarian Universalism mirrors a shift we are seeing in society at large. I know you felt that too, from the Black Lives Matter movement to Land Back movement, from the Me Too movement to the Dreamers, from Free Palestine to abortion access and beyond. We are seeing a shift in our focus. We are realizing that perspective that does not center the marginal, perspective on justice that does not center and promote marginalized voices is not one that will truly transform our world. For those among us still struggling to understand any or all of the movements I just named, which center the needs of marginalized, remember the lines from our shared reading earlier. Grandchildren of those who stoned the prophet sometimes gather up the stones to build the prophet's monument. Always, it is easier to pay homage to the prophets than to heed the direction of their vision. If we are to be a religion that is relevant to the 21st century, we have to make that shift too. The language that is ours to claim and learn about is that of collective liberation, getting all of us free from all that binds us and all that divides us. Church in the 21st century must be a place where we hold space for this transition and support one another through the cultural shift of our time. In 1948, Reverend James Luther Adams, I wrote John, that is odd. In 1948, Reverend James Luther Adams, JLA, was serving on the board of directors at the First Unitarian Church of Chicago. The minister and some board members had come up with a bylaw change that would permit the church to welcome people of all races into its membership. The church only currently accepted white members. One member of the board strongly opposed this measure. "What if not everyone in our church agrees with this?" he asked. His objection grew, and the board debated this proposal long into the night, into the early hours of the morning. Reverend James Luther Adams finally asked the member who objected most strongly, "What do you say is the purpose of this church?" The objecting board member stopped, thought, and finally said, "Okay, Jim, the purpose of this church is to get hold of people like me and change them." In a time when cultural tides are shifting under our feet, Unitarian Universalism must be a place of comfort and change, a place of welcome and transformation, a place working for the good of all, and a place focusing on collective liberation. If these values, our values, have gotten a hold of you, it is good to have you here for the journey. Come, let us hold and change and transform each other, our community, and our world.
Our last song involves call and response. I'll sing a word and then you'll sing a reply. Those words will be, your words will be in parentheses and I'll sing the other words. Every third line we'll all sing together. It's a lot easier than I just made it sound. Would you please rise and join me and sing Courage? Feel free to improvise harmonies as you will. And courage, my friend, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. I believe the next word is freedom. My friend, we do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. Patience, patience, my friend, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. Justice, my friend, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home.
As our service comes to a close, we will extinguish our chalice. I invite you to read our chalice extinguishing words written by Reverend Dr. Rebecca A. Edmonston Lang with me. Mindful of our highest aspirations, bound by common faith and purpose, and yet beginning with ourselves as we are, let us take one more step together in an ardent quest for dignity, justice, and